certified real.
Hey, I'm a little excited.
You heard it here first. Certified real. Airborne.
You are now listening to Real Talk Podcast.
This is certified.
What's good, Real Talk family? It's the usual suspects. It's myself, X, and Terrell. Today we got a special guest. Sorry about that. My brother Nate from Another decided to join us to talk about the film that we have in store for y'all today. Today, Warner Brothers drops Space Jam 2, A New Legacy, directed by Malcolm D. Lee, written by Joel Taylor, Tony Rittenmeyer, and screenplay by Keenan Coogler, starring LeBron James, Don Cheadle, Cedric Joe. Also produced by Ryan Coogler. Let's just dive straight into it. What's your initial thoughts?
Man, it was about time, man. It was, it's been quite some time since the first Space Jam, and this is, you wouldn't call it really a sequel. I guess you would call it a reboot, right? And
I felt like it's a reboot, but I think they're calling it a sequel.
To me, it is a sequel, though. Right? Why would it be a reboot? It's not like they really played off of. Reboot is like, to me, a reboot is not acknowledging at all what happened before. It's just like literally the same story told differently and through a different lens, through a different time period.
So like a lot of times a reboot is like a restart. Like they're just kind of reintroducing stuff, like what they do with the Halloween films. Like, like a new director get on it, and they want to, start from the beginning, origin story, whatever the case may be. That's usually what they call, like they do with a reboot, including what you said to it. But I feel like a lot of times sequels kind of follow that same timeline and and push the story forward in a different direction if they're going to go in a different direction, whatever. But they kind of have that underlining, this is what happened in the last one, and then we're moving forward a lot of times.
Gotcha.
It seemed like it seemed like they there was little things that that reminded you of the first one, but obviously there was a lot of things that were revamped, and there's a new star. There's LeBron James. He's it's the same theme when it comes to the protagonist. It's the best player in the league at the time, quote unquote. People are going to debate about that in the comment section. I don't care how you feel. That is what LeBron James is right now. But yeah, and overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It was, I was laughing the whole time. I was engaged the entire time. Loved the cast, and it was all the way through. I had high expectations for it, especially with the producers. You had Ryan Coogler touching the project, so I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a dope film.
What's your initial thoughts, Nate?
I mean, it was cool. It was a decent film. I wouldn't definitely not better than the first one, in my opinion. I enjoyed some of the story plot. I laughed a little bit throughout. It was a little long. And LeBron is not that great of an actor. So, and on top of that, it felt like a big HBO Max commercial.
So I agree with both ends. I think it had its moments. Of course, it had its good moments. I enjoyed the fact that they had a more solid story this time around than they did in the first one. Like the first one just seemed like they wanted to make something fun around Michael Jordan, make money off that name, off that that popularity. But as a kid, that's entertaining enough for you don't need a story, so to say. But I think for the younger generation, which is interesting because Terrell is a little bit younger than us, so we have a different perspective when it comes to like the whole '90s era. But I think the younger generation, people that grew up idolizing LeBron James and never followed or saw the Michael Jordan, other than like YouTube clips, can enjoy this. Like my 3-year-old son was engaged and he was paying attention to the cartoons and animations of it. But for me myself, I did feel like they needed to pay more homage, like we was talking about with the sequel reboot. It did feel like a reboot because it kind of left some things unanswered for me. So and
Yeah,
then Nate, you know, go ahead.
no, I feel like they should have leaned in more to like this is a sequel, right? That LeBron this is the second one. This is the second time that it happened. They could have had more jokes, more punny stuff that leaned into that stuff. I mean, it was funny. The Michael B. Jordan halftime stuff was funny. But that's like the only time that they like really acknowledge that this is like the second time that happened again. Like a lot of the Looney Tunes didn't acknowledge that they did this before 25 years ago or whatever the case may be. Right. They just was like, oh, this is LeBron and all this other stuff. Like they could have did more stuff into that. And I don't know if that's like sensitivities of comparing LeBron and Jordan and comparing one to the other or whatever the case may be. But I felt like they could have leaned into it just a tad bit more. Because to me, it's like it's an elephant in the room. Like we know that this is the second one. Why not talk about it and be about it and lean into it? Like they showed the Monstars and they just was like like a little like pop up. Like they should have been in the plot in some sort of way. Like, whatever happened to them? Like they said they were joining the Looney Tunes and like a lot of that stuff, like those little holes, to me would have made it more of a powerful project than them ducking it the way that they did.
Right. So I like that you touched on that. So
I think they did that because they were trying to.
I like that he touched on it really quick. I like that you touched on it. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that because I mean, as filmmakers, I think that's like I don't know if it would be like a director's choice, if that was the writer's choice, or if that was Warner Brothers making that decision. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we've seen movies in the past that kind of pay homage to the sequel. I mean, to the original in the reboot or the sequel by saying like, yes, we understand, especially in comedy films. You know, like yes, we understand. This is what happened in the original film, and then they pull out jokes about it, and that kind of makes the story or the film a little bit better. And I think if they would have dove more into making a funny film rather than a story, I think it would have been a little bit better. And I'm one at the beginning when I saw the trailer. I love the idea of the story that they had, but I thought they would have, added those things into the story to make fun of that. Like, of course, I didn't think they would have a Michael Jordan cameo, but I thought maybe they have like a trophy in Looney Tune world showing Michael Jordan because what he did 25 years ago, like to pay that kind of homage. So what are y'all thoughts? They literally talked about every
movie Warner Brothers has ever put out, ever, and they didn't talk about Space Jam, the first one. I just like.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. Like they had, and sidebar, I did like the fact that they had all the Warner Brothers, distributed projects and all that stuff. We had freaking Jim Carrey in The Mask,
Pennywise,
Batman, Pennywise. Like you had a whole bunch of different characters in the whole joint. So I thought that was cool. But I do agree. I think they, it would have been cool to see something, even if it was like, small things here and there that would have reminded the older generation watching the film, like, oh yeah, I remember that from the last film, while at the same time appealing to this generation's, because like it seems like that's the direction they were going. They were just focused on appealing to this generation. You saw him in the bedroom with his son doing the dab and doing all this, this generation type stuff. So that kind of gave it away. I'm like, okay, I see exactly where they wanted to go with this.
Yeah, but I feel like the powerful movie, like to me, Toy Story 3, right, is a sequel, and they paid homage to everybody who grew up with Toy Story, right? It was like kind of like a closing of the chapter. Right. And it still was a kid's movie, right? Like a kid can watch it and still be engaged. And it made it so much better where as an adult, I was able to watch it and really be like, oh, this is a phenomenal movie that can move your emotions. But also as a kid, you can watch that and take your kids to the movies and be like, oh, wow, this is a great movie too, right? And then you can reintroduce them to the other Toy Stories. I feel like that's something that they missed here, where it's like they missed an opportunity to like, all right, this is let's pay homage to the last generation who had this so that they can come in and bring them into. and then also make it for the kids. And I feel like when you do that, it's a powerful project together. It's like it mixes all that together.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that's what makes good projects, and a lot of the great projects that we've seen, like Toy Story, make sure that they do that, that they implement that the parents are actually going to be there watching the film with the child, right? So to make sure that everybody is satisfied and can enjoy the body of work. I think with Space Jam, they did leave a lot of holes. Like I had an idea where they could have used the villain from the last film, and I think this could have been so simple, is use the villain from the last film to kind of put that bug in Algie's ear to get him to want to do that. Because I felt like his reasoning for doing it, and this is just from a story standpoint, right? Like because they're trying to have a solid story, and I feel like that aspect of it was just a little weak. But just to get him to be like, yo, you're right, they really don't appreciate me. You know, like kind of like in the Spider-Man film with Jamie Foxx. Like he started to do things and realized that he wasn't appreciated, like kind of like that, like just things happening over and over again, not just one miscue of LeBron saying, nah, this is whack. And then now all of a sudden he want to kidnap the whole family. You know what I'm saying? So, or the whole world, he literally kidnapped the whole world and put everybody to watch the game. I just think they need a little bit of something stronger there. And a way that they could have done that and paid homage was bring back that old villain, you know, because they're Looney Tunes. No matter what happens, they're not going to die. Bring back that old villain, have him put that in his ear like, yo, they really don't appreciate you. This is what you can do. And then have him have some plan in the background of something that can happen. And then, you know, Algae is just another tool that's being used.
They could have even in that moment when he's giving the presentation to LeBron, they could have even introduced Space Jam and said, "Oh, you could be LeBron versus Michael." Everybody wants to see that. Like that would have been a cool like tie-in to like bring it, but you know.
But I do think that they was trying to stay away from those comparisons. Like I think they went out their way to do that, and it just showed in a way that they didn't expect it to show. But I do think they should have done that to make those jokes, to to have that humor, to have something to talk about.
Yeah, all you have to do is lean in strong once, and then you can fall back from it and like make it its own project.
You guys think? I get it.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask. Do you guys think that this film would have benefited from just leaving all of that out completely? Because if you're gonna include those things, like how in this film they had small clues as reminders of what was in a previous film, it kind of teased the audience. It teased those fans of the first Space Jam. So it's like, why would you sprinkle those little clues if you're not gonna, like you said before, show like a trophy or something, or show the villain, or show Michael Jordan in some way, shape, or form? Because it's almost like this should have just been a straight up reboot, no reminder of the last film at all.
Now, what I think is they did do what we're saying they should have done. They just didn't execute it well, right? Like they just not executed. They didn't, like the whole Michael B. Jordan was a tease of Michael Jordan. Like that was them saying like, oh, we've done this before, and the reason why we won is now coming back to help us win, right? Obviously, that's never going to happen, but they did tease it. I just think that they just didn't execute it well. Like it could have just been done. It could have been done better. It's pretty much what I'm taking from it.
They didn't talk about secret stuff. They didn't have no other actor come in and try to help out LeBron or whatever. Like there's so many things that they could have like leaned into jokes about. To me, the best type of like comedies or like things like this is when you lean into the jokes that they know about themselves, right? Like LeBron has always said that he needs help to win a championship, right? To beat a team. Like, why don't you bring in somebody who's like, who does that, right? And lean into that stuff, because it makes it more relatable, makes it more real. It makes it more like, oh, I'm secure about myself as a person, that I'm gonna make these movies the way that the fans would enjoy it more than being insecure that I don't want to bring up Michael Jordan, I don't want to bring up the other movie or anything like that, because this is my own movie and I needed to be my standalone away from that. Like it just seems like even calling it the new legacy, right? Like you're trying to literally distance yourself away from what has happened before.
Right. See, that's the thing though. I think they did do that. Right. Like I think when he went in there and took out his drawing board and said, I need Superman, Batman, Iron Giant. Like I felt like that's what he was doing. Then he said he wanted Superman,
Oh
Batman,
yeah,
Iron Giant,
you're
and
right. You're
King
right.
Kong. Like he wanted the biggest and the best of the Warner Brothers team, and he just couldn't get any of them, and he was stuck with the Looney Tunes. Right. So I think they did kind of do that. And I think, that was their plan when they went into the drawing board was to joke and play off those things. I just think they didn't execute it good enough to the liking that we wanted in a way, right? But I think him coming in there saying like because MJ had a drawing board, if I remember correctly, he just wasn't trying to pick the best of the best. He was just going with whatever Bug said. This is what we had, right? And he said, whatever, we gonna work with it. It did the opposite with LeBron James. He came in there saying like, nah, I want King Kong, Superman, Batman, Iron Giant. So I felt like they did kind of joke on that aspect. I just think they just didn't execute it well enough, if that makes sense. And I think they did that throughout the whole entire film with LeBron James, with the fundamental things, just everything they had, basketball. I just think, and then I think there was just some corny stuff, like some corny jokes that I didn't like, but I didn't mind because I know it's a kid film. Like every time he said ball, the basketball come and hit him in the face. That was kind of like, kid funny type stuff. But I did want to move forward on LeBron James acting because I do think his acting was terrible. And I think Michael Jordan had better acting, but I don't want to compare the two. But I do want to ask, because, we talk about this all the time on the show. When you have somebody that's not, a great actor, didn't train in acting, not a naturally good actor, a lot of times what they do, and we talk about it with Kevin Hart, a lot of times what they do is they pile in a bunch of like, class actors. Like, for example, with Will Smith in The Fresh Prince. Like he had how many theater trained, I want to act actors around him that can help him and coach him and, moving forward on the process. I feel like Don Cheadle is that, but he's just he just wasn't enough. Like they needed more. And then another thing that I noticed with the acting is that you can visually tell where they cut and said, yo, I need you to react like this, and then recorded the reaction and then pieced it together, if you know what I mean. So it's like they took his son and they need LeBron to like act a certain way. You could tell that they did a close-up, like they cut to do a close-up and say, here, this is how I want you to look and this is how I want you to act. And then he did that and then they recorded it and then they pieced it in and it just looked bad to me.
Yeah, the editing was a little rough on the edges. Like you could to a kid's eye, you couldn't, you couldn't really notice it. But if you really, really, really pay attention, you could tell, like, even like, because in school we study continuity. You could tell, like, with his facial expressions that certain things weren't really lining up. But as far as his acting, I wasn't expecting elite level acting performance from LeBron James. That cry, I'm not going to talk about that cry. I mean, he did his best. I'm not about to talk shit, but it's, I think he did enough for the role.
Was he believable? Did you feel like he was believable? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about being believable in the aspects of the film, of the act. So, like, of course, we're not expecting him to be, Tom Hanks in Castaway, right? We're not expecting him to be that, right? But he doesn't need to be that in Space Jam, right? So, like, what did you think his acting was believable for Space Jam? Because I didn't think Michael Jordan's acting was great. I just thought it was good enough for Space Jam. You know what I'm saying?
It took me a minute for me to accept it for what it was. Mm-hmm. Was it believable in the beginning? It was like when he first got on the court, he was like, "What are you doing? You're on this court. It's work." And I was like, "Okay, that's a little much." That was a little much. That wasn't as believable as because like once you get further into the story, you're now entering the world with all these cartoon characters and doing all this crazy shit, right? So being next to that type of acting, he can get away with it because he's now next to cartoon characters doing a bunch of silly shit. But in the beginning, when he's on the court with his son, it stands out. You could tell, like, okay, he could have toned that down, or he could have did this or did that. But that's when the director steps in and does that. So.
Which really
I
quick,
feel
really quick, just a side note, which I was kind of disappointed in that because Malcolm D. Lee is one of those dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like he's one of those directors that you can sit here and be like, yeah, if he's doing it, then it's gonna be elite, right? Like so, like he did some some corny stuff like Undercover Brother, Roll Bounce, but he also did Soul Men, which was one of the funniest movies that I've ever seen. He did a couple of episodes of the Wu-Tang saga. And then he did some here and there things like Girls Trip, Night School, The Best Man Holiday, things like that. But his catalog is decent enough to where I feel comfortable going into a movie, but I know what I'm gonna get. And I felt like this wasn't where I'm used to seeing his stuff at.
Yeah, I feel like LeBron is comfortable being on camera, obviously, because he's on camera 24/7, right? But I felt like he was uncomfortable acting, right? Especially in the beginning. Like when it was the voice acting, like the voice acting is fine because there's a cartoon taking over and whatnot. But when he's doing his body language and all this other stuff, it didn't seem comfortable. Like even like when he was in bed with with his wife, like that scene didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel natural.
It wasn't needed
for him, right?
Yeah,
that
you
also.
You think the scene of him putting his do-rag on
was not needed.
It wasn't natural? Nah, y'all ain't fuck with that. I thought that was a nice little beat.
No,
because
no,
we see LeBron on camera all the time, even outside of basketball. Like he has the shop and he's like super comfortable at the shop, right? It's not forced, it's like good conversation and all this other stuff. It seemed like he was forcing the acting, at least in the beginning. As it got on into the, then you have cartoons around and there's other people carrying it. Like he seemed fine, he seemed more comfortable. I just feel like he was uncomfortable, like trying to force that in the beginning portion of it.
So I agree with that, and I had a logic. I kind of had a logic that I was going with because I feel like he psychologically he had an issue because LeBron, really the character is LeBron, right? Like he just had to be himself, right? It's really no acting. I mean, it's acting, but there's really no acting needed when you're being yourself, right? But it's different when you're being yourself that somebody else scripted. Right. So like somebody sat down and said, I'm gonna write what LeBron would say. And I think that's a little bit different. And I feel like that's why it seemed a little bit off because he had lines that he might actually say realistically, but since they were scripted, it kind of felt off in a way because he literally just had to be LeBron. Like they opened up the movie kind of telling us like this is actually LeBron. Like we're not building a world or we're not creating nothing with this particular character. We're just taking LeBron's life and putting it on screen. And I think that's what kind of tricked him because now he's an actor, but he has to act like LeBron that somebody else drew up for him. That's what it felt like.
Do you think that if his actual family members were in it versus actors, it would have been different? Like if he was actually like talking to his son or his no?
I think they did. I think getting actual actors to play his family is the right move to do because he's not an actor. Nobody in his family are actors. So it would have just been like, it's difficult to work with untrained actors, especially on a huge project like this. So I think they needed to get people that want to act, that know how to act, that are acting to do it, right? And I don't even think the people that they chose to act was the best, like his two sons. I like what's her name? Saquon Martin Green. I like her because I remember her from The Purge. She's not a bad actress, but I just feel like, certain roles is just not for certain people. But I feel like they needed to get actual actors to surround LeBron James to get a better project. But what I do think that the writing wasn't as good as we thought it was, right? I think what they should have did, and I don't know if they did do this, obviously, is they should have had him say what they want him to say and then say, all right, what would you have said in this moment? And then try that to see if it feels more authentic. But I just think it was probably difficult to work with LeBron because I think this is his first movie where he actually was, the main role. He was in every scene from start to finish,
Well, if you look at a trained actor, even if it's scripted, they know how to make a scripted line sound natural. Like they know how to internalize whatever they need to feel in that moment, whatever they need to bring out, they know how to do it. LeBron just simply doesn't have the training, and that's I guess whenever they handed him the script, it was kind of like, okay, we're shooting this in 6 months. Let's get it together. I don't know if he had a couple of acting classes, but they just kind of, me too. I hope they gave him like something simple so that he can at least, bring out his best performance. But yeah, that's all I would expect.
We see this all the time. It's hard for athletes to go from, or just people, anything in general, but definitely athletes to go from. We don't have a lot of athletes that go from, playing the game and then going straight into acting and actually be, really good at it and move forward. So it's
but you could argue LeBron has been kind of acting, not in movies, but like he's been doing commercials his entire career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole Sprite commercial earlier on when he was playing different versions of himself, kid LeBron, older LeBron, regular LeBron, and all that other stuff. Like he did acting in that, right? I don't know to an extent if you want to say it was great, but like I feel like that I would probably say that he probably didn't get training for this, like actual real training for it, and he just thought that he could do it the way that he's normally done stuff with acting. I wouldn't be surprised if he did or didn't, but I don't.
I'm assuming he did because he has the money. I mean, not even the money, but it's like they had the budget to sit him down and train him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I would assume they would do. So what was it, like $100 million budget
or more? It had to be more. They had more CGI than anything I've seen in a long time. Yeah. It had to be. I don't know if it's Marvel $200 million budget, but it had to be up there.
Right.
So just Googling right now, he didn't take acting classes for Trainwreck, which is the other movie he was in a couple years back.
150.
So like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't take acting classes. He probably just watched the first Space Jam a couple of times and and that's it.
But I think
speaking of the CGI.
Go ahead.
I was gonna move forward. Do you want to go ahead and say your point?
I was just gonna say I think with that kind of budget, this kind of movie, and him starring in the whole movie, he needed to take acting classes. He needed to, and they was trying to make it a story. Like I actually have a story. Like LeBron, like Michael Jordan's Space Jam had a story, but it didn't have this story where he had to be sentimental with his son, sentimental with his wife. Like it didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? So I will understand that Jordan didn't take acting classes because he literally just was himself on the court, do some dribble moves, some green screen stuff, and then boom. But he's actually like he having full dialogue with Don Cheadle. He's having full dialogue, just him and his son on camera. Like you got to get classes, you got to get some training for stuff like that.
I feel like his only training was probably the table reads that they did when the scripts came out. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Well, now that you put it that way, I mean, they put him in more situations where he had to act.
Yeah. So I just feel like it would have been a smart move to do. But then again, you got other people like Will Smith, LL Cool J that they knew that they was really getting into their bag and trying to be on the acting thing. So they started taking acting classes. So maybe it's something like that. Like maybe he's not really trying to get in the acting bag. He just did this movie because, whatever reasons. And then that might be it for the next, like how many movies we see Michael Jordan in? You know what I'm saying? So maybe it's something like that. But I know, like I said, LL, Will Smith, like when they was like, yo, I'm gonna do this acting thing, they got into that bag and they went and took classes and, did master classes, whatever the case may be, got training and stuff. So, and it shows.
Maybe it was because of timing. Do you know when this film was shot? Was he still, was it in the middle of the season when they were shooting? Was it in the summertime, like after the season started? Like I don't know when they shot this film.
It don't matter.
Maybe they just
gonna be a billionaire.
Simply.
He's gonna be a billionaire. It don't matter.
That's a fact.
Don't matter. But what was you gonna say?
Yo, how did you guys like the transition? Yeah, what did you guys think of the transitions between the different, like, being in the real world from going to the cartoon world and then going into like the different levels of, animation, CGI? Like, how did you feel about that?
I wanted to say something because I want to bring this up to Gills because Gills was talking smack about this because this is what they did. What they remember with the whole Sonic the Hedgehog thing, like, oh, they didn't like how he looked because he looked too real, or he didn't look like the cartoon, or he didn't look like the game, or whatever the case may be.
That first iteration of Sonic was terrible.
No, but see, this is what I'm saying. So let's touch on that real quick.
Oh,
now,
God.
if you're if you was this is what I'm saying, because there's a huge difference between animation and live action, right?
Agreed.
So like what they was trying to do is take the animation and give it a different look when it came to live action, right? Like, so this is what it looks like as an animation, as a cartoon. But when you but the goal of live action is to get it as close as you can to what it actually looks like in real life, right? Now, I would agree that they failed at that. But what I was trying to explain to like Gills is that I understand where they was coming from that. Now, Space Jam did a way better job at what than the animators over on Sonic, right? So it looks better, so then you can see it and you can be accepting of it, right? But of course, a blue hedgehog that actually looks like an actual hedgehog, it can be a little bit off. Like his legs was long, he didn't really look like a hedgehog, whatever. Now I understand, but I understood what they was trying to do with what they created, and then obviously saw their fans didn't like it, so they switched back to more like the animation. But with the Space Jam, when they switched over to what they kind of actually like, what they actually look like if they was a live action, over exaggerated animation, because we still have to remember that it's still a cartoon character, right? So of course it's gonna have the over exaggeration to it. Like Bugs Bunny still was standing up; he wasn't on all fours hopping around, right? So but I feel like when we sit there and look at it and we start to critique it, we don't take that into factor. So that's why I thought it was dope.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it because all the Monstars were still in animation. So it's like, why make the Looney Tunes CGI, right?
I think they only did it for the aspect of that game, right? Like he was trying to switch up the game to do the whole, like, I forget what it's called when they jump all over and dunk all over. It's like an actual game that he pretty much took it from.
Got it.
But yeah,
that was all right. I mean, yeah, it was all right. Like the the animations weren't bad. Like they looked exactly like they did. It just looked a little realer than what it was. I didn't think it was necessary though, but
I just liked it because they're doing something different, right? Like they're not keeping it the same. They mixing it up, and I thought it was dope that they was able to do that one, and then I thought it was because like it looked like real, like they had real fur. You know what I'm saying? What's the dude that be shooting up that be chasing a bunny? I forget his name. He looked like a real person. You know what I'm saying? But they still was doing the stupid, Looney Tunes things. You know what I'm saying? So I liked it. I thought it was great. What did you think, Cheadle?
I was just amazed by it in general because of everything on the back end. Like, how do you, like, just the amount of people that have to be involved on this project, which now you understand why the budget is so high. You have a team that's, filming this part of the film that's actually with real people in real life. Then you have a team of animators doing this one section of the film. Then you have that part of the film where it's live action. You have all these people doing the CGI. Now you probably have like a post-production supervisor, whatever you would call it, kind of just coordinating all that and how that would be cut together and put together. I was thinking of it in terms of that aspect.
Really?
And I did like, how they had, LeBron in the Looney Tunes world. He was like blowing on his stump for his whole body to like come out and stuff.
I thought that was dope too. How his beard and hat was all flipped up. I thought they did a good job with that aspect of things.
Right, and then I also like the I also agree with the live action. They did a good job transitioning from the animation to the live action.
Yeah, I feel like a movie that's 2 hours long, almost 2 hours long. I don't think LeBron could have carried the whole movie through if they didn't do the animation stuff. Like the animation was cool and it was great, and I enjoyed it, especially hopping through the different movies that they hopped through. LeBron was kind of funny in some of those moments with the voice acting and what they did with it. So I enjoyed those parts of it.
But I
Yeah,
read an
it's so
article.
random. Oh.
I read an article earlier today that they used a lot of LeBron James critique and stuff in it, like how when he went to the DC world, he was Robin instead of Batman, which was like a critique or a talking point when he went to Miami. And then they had a bunch of those, just thrown around in the story, which I think just wasn't needed. I just feel like it wasn't needed. They could have just, I just didn't care for it.
What Don Cheadle was like, he left
Yeah,
Cleveland,
yeah.
he left Miami, he left Cleveland again. Like,
yeah. Now that is cool. I think that is cool. When it's dialogue and you have to like kind of listen to catch on to it, I like those type of drops and stuff like that. But when you like creating whole scenes and whole, storylines based on to make this particular secret stuff and something like this is just, I just feel like it wasn't needed. Like I could sit here and say like they did that whole scene with like the DC world for two reasons: to advertise like what Nate was saying earlier, and to make that joke of him being robbed. And I think when creators start doing stuff like that, it just gets away from, I don't know, the story, it being entertaining, whatever the case may be.
I guarantee you somebody in that writer's room was like, hey, put a hairline joke in there. And LeBron was like, nah, fuck you.
Yeah. You also could see that his hair is still going. His hair is still bald in the film. If you look at it, if you pay attention to it, you can see the darker aspect of the front than compared to the rest of it, though. Just like at the end of the movie, they did that whole Taco Tuesday thing that he do. I just feel like it's corny, man. It's just corny.
It was doing a little too much.
Yeah.
You think they was doing too much with the dab?
Yeah. The whole opening. What made me mad is the opening set, the intro to it, like with the highlights and the music was fire. Like I enjoyed that. And then to cut that and go straight into LeBron's bad acting, just I don't know. It just is like, come on. Like I would have rather saw like Don Cheadle's character cooking something up and then cut into like warm me up into that. Like don't just give me something fire and then throw LeBron's bad acting in my face. I just felt like I just didn't appreciate that, I guess. It just went straight to him playing the game. You know what I'm saying? And here come LeBron saying, like, what are you doing? Like, it just didn't flow to me. Like it's just his acting. And like I said, it's his first like time leading a role, like leading a movie. He's the star. You know what I'm saying? He's carrying it, like he's in that role. So it's a little different. But you could tell that they didn't have that 100% faith in it because Don Cheadle had just as much screen time. You know what I'm saying? He's like right there with with LeBron. You know what I'm saying? So we might have just saw the movie from his perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like it should have just been Don Cheadle's Space Jam. You know what I'm saying? It might have been a little bit better.
Amazing.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit better.
Amazing.
And I like seeing Don Cheadle try to be funny too, because we don't get to see that a lot. Like it's usually like serious acting, bang bang bang. So it's cool to see him.
He's been in some funny stuff. He's in Black Monday right now.
I haven't seen Black Monday. I heard it was alright though. But is it funny stuff like this though?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not kid funny stuff. It's more adult funny.
But I do have a question about the advertisement, like you brought up, because we're coming into an era where we're seeing this a lot. Like back in the day, we'll just see somebody drink a Coke. You know what I'm saying? We'll see somebody drink a Dasani water, or they got on a shirt that say Under Armour on it or something like that. But there's like, you can like think of movies where it's like really, really heavy, right? Like one movie that I always think of is Gridiron Gang, where like everybody had on Under Armour. It was just like Under Armour everything. It was just disgusting with how much Under Armour they had on. And then you see this movie where literally the crowd is Warner Brother characters. So, like, what are your thoughts on how they did that?
I think they just took advantage of the fact that, this is a Warner Brothers movie. Let's add all of them motherfuckers in there. King Kong, Superman, Batman, Robin, the Matrix, Harry Potter world. Like, they was going.
They even had it in the dialogue. So like, and not only was they showing it, but they had LeBron dress up in it, talking about I love Harry Potter. Like, it was just too much for me.
Yeah,
Bro, this man had on a fucking trench coat looking like Morpheus. I'm like, this motherfucker. I was like, yo.
They even called it the Warnerverse, right?
Yeah.
Like literally every single Warner project they possibly had. I feel like if they would have just put HBO Max at the bottom, like it's a HBO Max commercial, they could literally chop this up and put it on TV
And
and
that's
put
what
it
they're
as
gonna do.
HBO Max commercial. This is all our projects.
Yep.
Come by HBO Max.
Yeah, he was definitely advertising himself too. The LeBron James logo was on his jersey. I guess he was probably wearing his own sneakers
Nike
too.
Beats was in it.
You had the little the controller. You saw the little Xbox logo on the controller for Microsoft. So I mean, it was a bunch of little stuff that was advertising. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Usually, what we get is what you just said, like the logos on the clothes. I mean, he's having a Mac, he's playing on a MacBook or something like that. That's what we usually get. But I felt like this movie took it to a whole nother level, and I feel like, and I'm afraid that they're gonna see like, oh, this is kind of successful. We should do this more often. And I'm afraid that we're gonna see that more in the future.
I don't want them crossing over other movies into movies just because, I don't want them crossing over no fucking Jurassic World and Fast and Furious. I don't want to be watching. I don't want to watch, a certain film, and then on the TV screen you see another movie that was produced by the same company. Like, nah, that shit is corny. That defeats the whole purpose of a film. You're supposed to be encaptured into a single story about a single situation, not have to think, oh, that's cool, that's from another movie. Like, nah, you don't want to see it. You want to focus on that story.
It's gonna happen.
It's cool. It's cool. But it's not. This is not the first time that it's happened. It's cool when it works, though. Yeah. Like Ready Player One, it worked.
Yeah,
right? They paid homage to a lot of different movies and stuff like that. There was a lot of nuggets that paid homage to that. Then Wreck-It Ralph or Wreck-It Ralph 2, they paid homage to a lot of different. Like it does when it works, not when it's forced. And this seemed
exactly.
This seemed, hey, HBO Warner, this is all our projects. Come.
I feel like in the other in those films that you mentioned, it was kind of different because how they built the world, right? Like, so like Ready Player One, they built this world where you could be anybody you want. So they just had people who love Freddy Krueger. So you got a Freddy Krueger. Who love Iron Giant. So you have an Iron Giant. So I felt like the way they built that world, it fit, and it made it work. And I think the same thing with Wreck-It Ralph, right? Like, it was about that. So it works. But I feel like with this, like you said, it was forced because we know it's Warner Brothers. We know, like we know these things, HBO Max and stuff. And I feel like we're going into a world, just in reality, we're going into this space that Marvel and what they do works, right? Like that works. Like, just crossing all of these different worlds works for Marvel. And people, and of course, we live in a copycat world. Everything is copycat. And I feel like
Yes, we do.
Now, if this works, like if this Looney Tune world, Warner Brother verse, Serververse works and people like it, we're going to see more of it from them. Now, are we going to see a a Matrix and Pennywise cross? Probably not, but films that are kind of close to it, like they had Freddy versus Jason. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like those type things we are going to start seeing more of those type things, is what I mean. And it's nothing we can do
if it makes sense, then yeah. If it makes sense, it makes sense.
Like, I just saw a commercial. I just saw a commercial for because they're coming out with the TV show for Chucky, and they're showing it on USA and Sci-Fi. Like, I've never seen that before, where they open up a show, like they're starting a show and they're playing it on two different networks. Like, obviously they have a connection where they the money is going to be circulating. But I've never seen that. So so if they're starting to cross networks, cross movies, TV shows, it's a thing that I feel Marvel really started and kicked it off and been successful with it. And we're just gonna see that happen more and more. And then Marvel is getting to, like, what we're seeing now. They're getting into a world where they're about to open up everything.
Multiverse.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's about to be crazy, and I think people are trying to catch up to that.
yo, Marvel, the executive board, they're sitting in that office laughing their asses off because all the money that's gonna be coming in, they out here killing it. Bro, I don't even know what to say.
Yo, side note, have y'all seen the Loki, the last episode of Loki?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Don't say shit. Don't say shit.
Go watch that.
I know who's in it, and I'm happy.
You know who's in it though, Nate?
Oh my.
Now, have you watched the season though?
I watched the first 3 episodes, I believe.
Yeah, go watch that, son. There's only 3 more episodes. Go watch that. Son. Go watch it. Because what they're doing, son, is they setting up vampires. Because you got Blade coming out, and then you got what's the shit with the dude that plays he plays the new Joker. What's his name?
Joaquin Phoenix
or
Jared Leto?
Jared Leto. What's the movie he got with Marvel that's coming out where he's the vampire?
Morbius.
Yeah. So they got those 2 vampire films coming out. So they use Loki to kind of open up that world with the vampires. And then what I like most about it is they open up a world to where they casted a black man to be maybe the biggest more powerful supervillain that we've seen so far. And that's what I liked about it. His performance was incredible, but what I like about is that they literally opened up that can of worms. And I think it's just gonna make motherfuckers mad and shit like this.
Oh, of course. Like, no, this is not how it was.
You're gonna see all the comic book people say he's not that strong, or he's not this, or he's not that. And I just can't wait. I just can't wait. Because I argue with Gills and Banks all the time. Like, yo, what they did in comic books, bro, they cannot do in movies. It doesn't work. So like, you just can't do it. Like, it doesn't work. Like, you can't do it, bro. Like, stop expecting. Like, they want Hulk to kill everything. Like, yes, okay, bro. I understand in the comic books, Hulk can kill everything. But yo, Iron Man is more popular, bro. We don't want to see, they're gonna lose money if Hulk kills everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Hulk is what he is, what you want him to be, it's not gonna be any more movies, bro. Like, it's over after Avengers.
It's the same thing with Infinity War. Like everybody died in the comics. Like, literally everybody died. So it's like you can't kill off everybody.
Yeah, like they gotta make money. The comic books, like, they could kill everybody and then start a whole new comic book going 20 years in the past and do some next shit, and people would do it. It's not that acceptable in the movies. Like, you just can't do it film-wise, screenwriting, and then what is believable and what can work in a comic is not the same when you sit down and write a script. You know what I'm saying? I feel like niggas just never understand that. They just like, nah, I want Hulk to do this. I want Hulk.
If we're going by technicalities, Hulk could literally fuck everybody up and just be done with it. But yeah, then
it'll be no more movies, man. It'll be no more movies, man. Like, it'll be done. What else can you make? Everybody's dead because Hulk killed everybody. Why are we still here? Like, niggas was mad. Like I was trying to explain to them, because at the very beginning with the Hulk that's in the Avengers, they established the type of Hulk that he is, right? Like, he's emotional. He has this battle between, Banner and the Hulk that goes back and forth, right? They established this from the beginning. Like, this is what he was. Now niggas is mad that Hulk won't come out because he's emotional and scared of Thanos. Like, yo, they've been establishing this. Like, they've literally been holding your hand down the line to show, like, this is what's going to happen with Hulk. And you get mad, like, no, Hulk is not really like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, bro, we understand. Perfect.
Same thing goes for, like, book adaptations. You can't, like if you, even if you look at, like, a Harry Potter book, like the first film or whatever, that shit is like 800 pages. How the fuck you gonna fit 800 pages into 190 pages of a screenplay? It's fucking impossible.
No sense, something has to go.
When you hear the Harry Potter nerds on the forums talk about, you didn't include, like, no, you can't. You literally cannot. It's impossible. No one wants to sit in the theater for 5 hours watching.
And then they have the thing, and there's another thing that they do too. Like, some things that you gotta do, like, some of these stuff were created in like the 70s or the 80s, right? Like, the shit that was going on or that was said in the 70s, 80s, you can't do that in 2021. So obviously they have to change the story. So yes, it's a different story because we live in 2021. Like, for a perfect example is Teen Wolf, right? So like Teen Wolf, the very first Teen Wolf, when he told his friend that he was a wolf, he's like, man, I got something to tell you. He turned around and said, man, don't tell me you're gonna be a faggot. Like, you can't say that. You can't say that today. Right? So if that's in the book, that's not going to be in the movie, bro. Like you have to accept and understand that. Like I understand when you read it, it was great. Just like with the Pennywise, there's a whole rape scene in this thing. There's a whole like sex orgy in it. You can't put that. You can't have kids do that when you go to the movies. Like it's not acceptable, bro.
Absolutely.
Right. There's a lot of wild shit that got off.
Yeah, so
in the past. A lot of wild stuff that
right.
And people will argue it down. Like, nah, that's how it is. I want to see it. Like that's why they gotta change it, bro.
Niggas is weird, bro.
They're gonna get canceled. Like it's gonna be done. It's
you
not
can always
happen.
go watch the original or go read the book. Those things still exist. Those things still exist out there.
So I can't wait to fucking the Rainbow Six movie start dropping with Michael B. Jordan. I want to hear all those Tom Clancy book nerds get pissed off again. Like, he's not black. Why'd you make him black? Fuck you, it's Michael B. Jordan. Get over.
That's what's gonna happen with the mermaid too. Mermaid.
Oh yeah.
Mermaid is black.
It already started happening.
Yeah. What is this? Why? Why are they doing this? But let's go ahead and end this shit. Let's all move on. So
let's we want to rate it?
Yeah, let's rate it. So how we do the rating system is we have like, what is it, like 5 like selections that you can make. The first one is garbage can juice. It speaks for itself. The second one is what? Dud. That's speaks for itself. That middle one is what was that middle one?
Good watch.
The middle one was a good watch. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't bad. You didn't feel like you wasted your money when you went to go see it, etc. The next one is people's choice. Like that's the one that you recommend. Like you texting people like, yo, go watch that film. And then we got certified real, which is that like you need to watch this. This was one of the best films I ever seen, pretty much. So Terrell, you want to go first?
All right, I'm gonna go first. All right, I'm gonna give it a people's choice.
I knew he was gonna do that too. That's why I want
to give it first. Right, yeah, of course, yeah. The reason why I give it a people's choice is because I like their approach. I like the way it was set up. I wasn't coming into the film expecting, LeBron to have Denzel Washington level acting capability. So I'm like, okay, even if his acting is okay, I'm cool, whatever. Just, get through the story. And, I like the plot. I like how he had to save his son. I like the relationship they were, how it was established in the beginning, how he wanted his son to be a basketball player. His son was more into video games. It was like a tug and pull type of deal, and how it progressed to the end. It was generally an enjoyable movie. Obviously, there was little things in between that could have been better. There could have been, certain things that could have, drew out a better performance. I don't know if that would have been from the director or him taking those acting classes like we were talking about before. But, I feel like, this is something that, generally, people can enjoy and that I could recommend for people to watch. So I give it people's choice.
I'm going to give it a good watch. And I'm going to give it a good watch because I think what it's worth is a good film. Like people can still watch it and enjoy it. Like we talked about, the CGI was dope. Looney Tunes is always a good watch. Cartoons, it has that feel of reminding you of other things. You know what I'm saying? Like what cartoons, Looney Tunes, stuff like that. Plus, the whack advertisement they showed. Don Cheadle gave a great performance, I thought. I like the idea of how they implemented computers because that's the world that we live in now. What I didn't like was I thought the story could be stronger. LeBron's acting wasn't the best, but I wasn't expecting the best, but I expected a more believable approach to Space Jam. I didn't while I was watching it, I didn't compare it to the first one, even though it is difficult because you definitely, especially when you start feeling like there's things missing, like, oh, you could have did this, that, and the third. But yeah, I'll give it a good watch. I think it's not bad. If you got HBO Max, definitely watch it. It's enjoyable. Like I said, my 3-year-old son watched it with me. He enjoyed it. So I'll give it a good watch. You got Nate?
I'll also give it a good watch, and mainly because I can't say that it's better than the first Space Jam. And to me, the first Space Jam, if we were rating it, would be the People's Choice. So I can't put them on the same level. But I enjoyed the movie. It was a good movie. I laughed. The storyline was good. Like you said, it could have been a little stronger at times. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. It was a well spent 2 hours. Will I watch it again? Probably, maybe if it comes on HBO or whatever somebody wants to watch it. But it was a good movie. I enjoyed it for what it was.
So that's our take on Space Jam 2: New Legacy. We appreciate y'all tuning in, checking it out with us. And that's the show. We're out.
Certified real.
Hey, I'm a little excited.
You heard it here first. Certified Real. Airborne.
You are now listening to Real Talk Podcast.
This is Certified